chaps, drinks all round, we've had a jolly good supper. If a man goes out with the sergeant's wife, he's foolish not to ask the general to tea and all his family. If he can't come, then tickle his bum with a stick of celery. Oh, Blackpool is the place for me, a fishing from the rock. I never use my fishing line, I always use my dainty little fingers, so slender and so slim. I can get all 5 of them inside my best girl's pockets are so useful, especially in the stalls. For when you're tired of what's on stage, you can fumble with your money if you've got some, and if you've had some luck, and haven't gone and spent it all, having a jolly good Turkish bath and manicure to make you look so smart. Remembering in society, never let a swear word pass your lips. Also refrain from humming, for there are some society folk who think it's worse than biting your nails in public, a very lonesome trick. But if you cannot suck those nails, then why not suck that stub end of a pencil and chew it all to bits? And bear in mind that sweet shop girls are very alluring peppermints to sell. You wait until you succumb, and if you like the sweet shop girls, don't hesitate to come and have a drink with me. This ends this song of mine. I had a date at 8:30 and now it's 9:30.
Hello friends and gamers, and welcome to the Fortress. My name is Jinx, and this video is the Allied Strategic Conference for turn number 12/13. So we saw a few interesting developments this last turn, especially the hostilities increased from the USSR. They've declared war on us. Actually, we declared war on them. So that's a bit of a complex issue. On the German turn, in one of his comments, he said that, I think since he deleted it, but in one of his comments on this German 13.1 video, he stated, oh yes, and USSR is at war with the Commonwealth, or they declared war on Commonwealth. That's why they received that Lend-Lease, right, from the Germans. So I was going under the assumption of that, but then turns out, in our communication and with work and stuff like that, by the time I caught up to the fact that USSR hadn't declared war on me, then it was a mad scramble to phone and call and text and get a hold of Hilltop so that we can declare war on him as soon as he moved anything in the Atlantic. That's why that was a little bit ramshackled, where he did all his moves and then later on came back and did it. It was because we were going under the assumption he was already at war, or I was, and once I figured that out, then I had to quickly reverse gears and try to get a hold of him to let him know that we were going to declare war on him. Because there was no reason for him to do combat moves with his subs in the Atlantic. Absolutely no reason, unless he's going to war against the Allies. So that's why we declared war on him. And yeah, as we saw in his video, he would have done it against us anyways. I'm not super into the whole political kind of thing of propaganda and saying, they're hostile and that kind of thing. It's just not my cup of tea. I just play the game and have fun doing it. I leave the, it's your fault, and no, it's your fault kind of stuff to the other players. So we see some interesting developments. Now, we are hard-pressed as allies, but I am having loads of fun. Now, the game is never designed to be going for the allies to go up against both the Comintern and the Axis, so all across the globe we see ourselves pushed. Everywhere we are in dire straits. Britain is threatened by, all the Marines that the Soviets have. It's threatened by the strategic bombers the Germans have. In the Atlantic, we're being pestered by both Axis and Comintern submarines. Now, in the Mediterranean, that's the same story. We're threatened by convoy raiding. In Greece, we had to surrender Greece, and now that's going to fail. Turkey's fallen, so that opens up a doorway to the Middle East. Africa is being threatened by the Japanese presence over here, as well as the Soviets raiding along its coastlines. So that's just deadly all around. In the Middle East, we see a major push towards southern Iran. India is being threatened from both sides. Malaya no longer exists. The Money Islands are firmly in the Japanese hand, and Australia is, I'd say, not quite half the territories belong to Japan at this turn. The Japanese have reinforced their islands a little bit with seaplanes to prevent convoy raiding, and the Americans are in a position far away from anything. The CCP are just a massive threat pushing against India, and there's really nothing we could do about them. So all across the globe, though our income may be up there, we're still quite good with income. I think, if I remember correctly, I had 140 IPPs of income together, combining all the allies and all their bonuses and such. Maybe it's less now, maybe 120. All of our stuff is spread across this massive serpentine kind of amount of territories. The Axis, they have this advantage of interior lines where they can attack both north and south and rapidly shift troops around. The Comintern are the same story. Only the CCP is a little bit strung out for the Comintern, but they don't have anything to worry about because the Axis are completely neutral towards them, and even though there's territory they could easily pick up from each other, they just choose not to do so. Cochinchina only has one militia, yet all those units are heading towards India, where they could pick up, they could pick up a few IPBs there. But, there is definitely a very firm alliance happening between Comintern and Axis. So everywhere we look, we are threatened. So it's really hard to make like a concrete strategy anywhere because, we don't have any strategic reserve. We don't have any excess of income. Everything that we have is poured into the defense of our nation. And there's so many things that we have to think about. Chiefly India. India is being assailed from, almost three sides. The CCP over here, threatened by ocean by the Japanese with their, not unsizable fleet here. Plus they have all these Marines sitting here in Malaya. I think that's a good 4 Marines. And then they have the Comintern coming here from the north. So what is India worth to us? It's worth a bit of cash, but not loads and loads. It's worth $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 here. Iran is worth $2 to us, but the rest of it is rapidly going underneath the communist hold. I was left with thinking, when is a good time to make a stand? It's usually my policy not to engage in battles that can't win. That seems kind of logical, right? Not to engage in warfare you don't think you'll win, in attacking or in defense. If you can't defend against superior odds or he's going to wipe you out, you retreat to a better position. But there's a point where retreat is no longer an issue. Now, I still stand by my moves with the KMT, hoping that the Japanese attack, because nobody has foresight to see all that far ahead. The Japanese could have made a move, like traditionally they do in turn 1 or something like that, right? But instead, they to this day, they're not making any aggressive actions, even though they could easily pick up Hunan, Shantung, and the like, but they choose not to at this point. So when is a good time to retreat? Now, this force here is in deep trouble. This, CCP, Comintern force can come down here, wipe them out. These cavalry in this position can also come in here for extra cannon fodder to do some damage. Now, I should quickly note this militia here. So there was a militia existing here. We'll have to battle that out. I'll do that on the British turn. And I'll allow Hilltop to send some aircraft here to fight that one out as well. I'll just do a defensive roll and assume that he is lost, just because he didn't. I suppose he didn't catch that in my video, or he thought he retreated or withdrew down south or something like that. So, is this worth holding? Well, honestly, I think that's all we can do. If we surrender this territory, it's worth $2, and it's mountainous territory, good defensive terrain. Once we withdraw from this position to India, we're back in the plains, and the plains, he'll just wipe us out quickly through the plains. We need to make a stand here. And even though our dice rolls will not be adequate, we will probably lose that fight. We still need to hold on to that territory and at least cause as much casualties as we can, because we can cause more casualties against him here than if we retreated here. And after that, we'd have to retreat here and back into Calcutta or something like that. It would be just deadly all around. So we need to make a stand here in southern Iran. And there's really no two ways about it. Even if we lose that fight, it's just the nature of the beast, right? We have to fight that one out to the bitter end. Calcutta is interesting as well. Like, should we hold on to Benares? Send our 10 infantry up here to hold out against the 21 militia and 3 artillery plus all his aircraft that can hit Benares? I don't know. I think so. I think we might have to. The trick is we don't have sufficient aircraft to spread to defend both these areas. We could put 3 aircraft here. Well, we don't need to, but we could put 3 aircraft here to scramble into Benares or hold on to Calcutta. Here we have a different story, where we just simply don't have enough to hold on. So on both sides we're assailed. I think what I'll end up doing is holding on to Calcutta, let the CCP go around us, and we'll just battle it out in Calcutta, and hopefully the Americans come in and put sufficient pressure, or the CCP will be weak enough in one of these areas that we can swing out and smash them. Hopefully, that's the desire. If that pans out or not, it's tough to say. If we do put infantry up here, we'll be able to have 11 units here, plus whatever aircraft can scramble, and his units, his infantry, will be going across the river. So we'll have initial advantage, which will rapidly decrease as time goes by. But that's the hope, is to defend that position. Perhaps if that's what we end up doing, we may as well just let them go around us as well, but that causes its own host of problems because as soon as they go here, the following turn they can go into Haryana and southern India, and shortly afterwards Maharashtra. So we're really left with islands of defense everywhere we go. Now that's a strategy that was tried by the Germans once the Soviets were invading and into Germany and Poland and such. But what ended up happening there is that each of their pockets of resistance got wiped out bit by bit without issue. Well, with lots of casualties. They just chose to wipe them out or completely neglected them and mop them up later on. So we have an island of defense here. Will we have an island of defense here? And will we have this final barrier here in Afghanistan, in southern Iran? But that doesn't prevent them from coming through Afghanistan as well. It won't be this turn, but it might be a few turns from now. So, dire straits. And now what about the southern defense? Well, the Japanese can come in here with their they've got a host of transports. They got 6 transports. That means they could pick up 12 infantry, plus the shore bombardment, and so therefore they can pick up any territory they choose. They can go for Maharashtra, they can go for southern India, they could definitely make a landing here. So even if I put 3 aircraft here to help scramble to here, not that I need to, but if I did, then that's difficulty position. My thinking was use this British fleet, drop off all the units they have on board with whose forces that is. That's Auchinleck's forces. So that would be a nice stack. It'd be 8 units to drop off here to assist in the defense. Place this navy up there. Place 3 fighters here. But the issue there is that this Japanese force can wipe me out without too much trouble. They could wipe me out, or they can simply forget about wiping me out, come to this position, kind of trap me in this section, and drop off 12 units into this area, defeat my 3 aircraft plus whatever militia I put into that area, and just wipe me out. So that's really not an option, I think, to come in here. But that's when stepping back a step and looking things a little bit broadly. So I'll tell you now about my strategy. I don't know what I'm going to call it. The ping pong strategy, perhaps, because that's what I feel like I have to be doing. So the Japanese fleet is a threat to that force. So we need to create a counter threat. So we ping pong the forces back this way. Now Panzer King expects I'm not going to go for the Japanese islands, and in some ways he's correct because this force here is equal to his force here. So I might not do anything until I could do something with to actually wipe them out. So there's 2 options I can do with these. My first thought was simply, send all these units, hit Marshall Islands. If we hit Marshall Islands, we'll actually be, we'll get 1 buck off of them. It's a nice island to start off with. I think they get a bonus from holding on to it, or at least a victory point. So that's something to hold on to. But that doesn't add too much pressure, and if I was Japanese at that point, I would probably still consider going towards taking out that British fleet, then turning around and coming this way. Because once you take out that British fleet, the Italians can happily go to war without any issue. Even if the Japanese are not wiped out, but reduced in strength themselves. Once this fleet is gone, Italy's going to go to war. Just without question. That's all they would do. So my second option on this ping pong strategy is go from here, take out Wake, and come here to Bonin. We don't need to go as far as Bonin because Wake, Season 66 will be sufficient for our needs. But what we can really threaten the Japanese with is blockading their island. If we blockade their island, we would get, their income would only be reduced to just what they have off of their main island, and that's it. So what does that work out to? Well, if that's $10 or something like that, I think it's something like that. Maybe a bit more. Hokkaido, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. $8 from the Japanese island. So if we come here, we really threaten to encircle that place. And we have the sufficient forces to do that, to encircle them, if the Japanese go that direction. So if we come to this position where we can threaten the Japanese islands, the USA has to not go in this direction. So that unlocks some features for us. If we came down to the Marshall Islands, well, that doesn't do much good because 1, 2, 3, 4. We are still 1, 2, 3, 4. We're still in range that we could blockade the island, but not with our battleships. And so they would be in a position where they could just simply, actually we can't get 4 because this is not a major base. So 1, 2, 3, it would take us several turns to get into position for that. So we need to make a hard thrust towards the Japanese islands and force these Japanese forces to go in a different direction, to go, retreat, pull back, and counter the threat of the Americans. And hopefully, too, the Americans' presence there will also encourage the CCP to not go straight out for Calcutta. I mean, they have sufficient forces here that they might still be able to do that, but by threatening an invasion on their coast, we might prevent additional units from coming our direction. That is the hope. So if we have troops here, most of our navy will be here, and the rest of them will be here. It'll be 2 battleships, 2 coastal subs, 1 transport in this position to take out Wake. That's all that we need. Now, the risk is that he can hit me with his navy. So I'm going to employ a secondary strategy called the silver net. I'm just making up names here, guys. The silver net or the steel net. If I put a submarine here and a submarine here, that's going to prevent him from, because we're playing with a screening force optional rule. For anything to get past this point, he has to divert a screening force here to take out this one. He's only got 1 destroyer in that navy. I mean, he's got 1 down here in Sarawak, but I could take that one out. So if he goes here, he has to divert sufficient forces. And then the next step is up here. He's got, if I had 2 subs here and 2 subs there, that again changes things up for him. He has to reduce his forces again to challenge this. Now, I could choose to submerge, or I could choose to stay on the surface. So for me, I'm not losing anything out. But he has to judge how much is enough to get to this position. And then once I get here, he'll be of equal strength to me or less by the time he gets there, if you count for what he diverts in these areas. And now that's not even including the French or the Anzac and British Commonwealth, where I send them. If I send them to Bonin, then we are sufficient forces to match what they can throw at us right here in their entirety, even not including our 2 battleships, our 2 coastal submarines, and including their aircraft over here that can attack. But so we have an option. We could either do this silver net, or we can simply put everything here, because that would serve our purposes as well. If we go here, we could take Wake back, but if we go here, it's no victory points, it's no income increase, but it is a threat to them, and they will see that as a threat to them, and it gives us more teeth, you know, that they see it as a larger threat of what they can do. So that changes the matter, and also it has the advantage of not having these aircraft in that fight, because the distance from here, these aircraft, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they wouldn't be able to land there, right? I mean, those aircraft still can't reach here anyways, but nonetheless, that is our option, sending most of our force here and a minimal force here. And the force here, the only reason it's here is because it can't reach this position. And that way we threaten that sea zone on the next round, right? And so it forces him to withdraw, hopefully anyways. Withdraw to defend that. Because once he loses that, that's losing massive amounts of income per turn. That unlocks this feature for us. So that unlocks the fact that we can drop off all of these forces to that position, minus the aircraft. So that's, what is that? 8 infantry to here. Now, will 8 infantry plus whatever we can throw here be enough to challenge Azerbaijan, the forces in Azerbaijan, as well as his cavalry that can come down there, and all of his aircraft? Well, if we build an anti-aircraft here, if we rail in an anti-aircraft here, that will deter enough of his aircraft that he might not come down. And then we have this second issue where we can actually do some hassling towards him. We have an airborne here and an air transport. We can capture North Caucasus. That's worth $3, so we're not losing anything. We're in the exact same position we started from because it's $3. And so he has to divert some of his cavalry to come here. So that is a force multiplier for us because he'll have to divert, I'd expect, let's say 2 cavalry just to take out this area. And so that means that there's a few less units over here. Now, over here, I have the defensive mountains. Over here, I also have the defensive mountains for each round of combat. So we may even see three cavalry go up to there. One quick correction here, his air transport, it's not specified if your air transport can drop things off in non-combat and then move away. So in his video, he came down here, dropped in Turkmenistan, and then ran back to Moscow. My read of the rules is simply that naval transports operate in a certain way that once they drop off troops, they stay in the same position. And that's the way I've been playing my air transports. unless it's in combat move, of course. And so I think that's the way we're going to be doing this way, and Panzer King concurs with that idea. Doesn't make too much sense to me. I think it really limits air transports, but it's similar to what it is with naval transports, right? It's the same story. They always have to stop once they go. So that creates a spoiling attack here where he has to divert 2 cavalry to retake this position. If I could, I would take out Stalingrad and the factory, but it's just simply not in range. I have air transport here, so it has a move of 6, 7 with my long range. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would have needed 1 more space to get there. But if I had taken that factory, that would have been allowed me to pump out a few units and reduced his tech roll for 1 turn. It would have allowed me to hold this for, well, 1 turn at the very least. Yeah, 1 turn at the very least to hold that place. So I could build out, a militia there, another infantry there, or whatever I wanted to, and hold it out for a little while. Another option would have been up here in Novosibirsk, a little bit further away, but still, well, I mean, I wish it would have worked. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite do that trick for us. So that's the story with that, what my options are. Now, if they can survive, I'll still have to do the calculations on that, because I'll be facing, with my additional 8 infantry, that's including, well, maybe 7 regular infantry, the 2 mountain infantry, 8, 9, 10 regular infantry, 2 mountain infantry. I'd have these 2 units move in there, so that's 12 regular infantry. I could, what else? 3 fighters, 4 if I drop the one off from Gibraltar here. Then I have a medium bomber here that can do some damage as well if we so choose to do so. Stuff like that. So we have options. Now there's another option that we could do as a spoiling attack, is attempt to attack here, that transport. Now if we do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, we could theoretically, we might be able to wipe this out. We might lose a unit as well, but we'll definitely be able to wipe out that air transport because we have air superiority, so we'll be able to wipe out that transport, which is nice, a little win in our pockets, get rid of that thing. So that takes care of the southern Iran, the India kind of front, and our calculations of it. The only thing left to question is this defense feasible? I think it, regardless, has to be completed. It'll give us a chance later on to succeed. And then this Benares, if we should let the CCP get around us or not, and that's another calculation that will need to be made. The defense of Egypt needs to be starting to thought about because the Comintern may just as easily go down this way towards Iraq, Transjordan, and eastern Egypt. So we have these units here that can come down here and reinforce that position. The Italians are no threat. They sent off their transport somewhere else, so we don't need to worry about that. Turkey is another story. It's actually an opportune moment where we could attack. If I had more forces here and wasn't so hard pressed everywhere else, I would actually attack here. I have 2 infantry, artillery, and cavalry to whack into this position. It's a city, of course, but he only has a +1 defense for his mountain. That would be it. That's all that's, it'd be 1 at 6 and the 2 of these at, what would they be, 3 or maybe 4, and 1 of these at 2. So realistically, I could whack that if I wanted to, especially if I brought cavalry in there, or even my air transport, sorry, not cavalry, my air transport and fighters in there. But of course, that means this situation is not going to occur. Another option would have been send my entire fleet instead of to southern Iran, send them up here into the Mediterranean Sea, wipe out this fleet, drop troops off here at the same time as coming in here, and then we have a stronghold to hold on to. But realistically, what does that do for us? It would just bring the German attention back onto this area. This following turn, they can hit us with 4 infantry, all these aircraft, right into this position. Actually, all these aircraft can, 1 fighter can scramble into this position. So, yeah, it would be a deadly fight. And if it's worthwhile retaking Turkey, that's a tough one. I wish we had more strategic reserve for that. But we do have a lot of aircraft that can hit that position, including this one in Gibraltar. Now we have a situation here in Madagascar which has been pushed around a little bit. There we go. We'll need to deal with that as well to recapture Madagascar. Australia will be able to pick up 2 of those territories back this turn because we have some units present here. These units will come here. These units will come here. Minor correction on Panzer King's video is he had a destroyer from this position come up and take out... What did he take out with that fleet? Oh, New Britain, right? It's not actually New Britain, I think it's Rabaul, I believe it's called. So he picked up this with his destroyer and dropped him off there. But I'd already wiped it out on my American turn, so that is the correct positioning of that. Okay, so that brings us here to the Med. Now, the Republicans don't join the fight until somebody declares war on them, so that's lucky, and we don't need to worry about the Italians, so that's also lucky for now. The Italians do have 2 units here, but I think we're still in a good position here. We will have to deal with all these subs, though, eventually, and that Soviet fleet. This sub will be taken out by the French. One of these subs is going to be taken out by the Americans, and then we have our fleet to disperse and take care of business. Those 2 American ships, we're going to drop off people in the British Midlands, and then we have to worry about the strategic bombers. Now there's a stack of them now. Well, there's 2, so that's not a stack, but it's a large amount. So the defense against carpet bombing is going to be our anti-aircraft and our fighters. So we could spread anti-aircraft all throughout England. And I think that's what we'll end up doing, because we don't want to have persistent attacks against us each and every turn. That's going to be a massive hassle to deal with. So that's what we're going to do there. What about our strategic bombers? Well, we're going to cause hassle wherever we can to the Soviets, and one of them will be up here in Norway. They'll have a psychological kind of thing for the Soviets where they'll feel like they need to divert some income up there, but additionally it'll also possibly encourage our German Gunther von Kluge over there to invade Norway against the Soviets and capture it. He won't, of course, because he wants to get himself into a better position with his +1 attack. And so that also precludes for us even attacking a territory in Norway, because if we do that, then the Germans will just come in and take it away, so we're kind of in an awkward position where we don't quite know what to do with them. So at the end of the day, we'll probably send in what will we send in? We'll probably send in our strategic bomber to bomb those Marines, maybe both of them, but then additionally we could also send a strategic bomber to land an airborne unit somewhere up there in Scandinavia. Take it from the Russians or the Germans, we'll have to see. If we take it from the Germans, the Russians may see it as an opportune moment to declare war against them, because eventually they're going to want to do that. But I think that alliance is so tight that it's not going to happen for a little while. But that's our opportunity for the strategic bombers, because everywhere else is fairly well defended. So we want to kind of keep a low profile for a little bit and allow the Germans to go do other things, other places. Not attack them. Hopefully they don't attack us, and then not worry about it. One correction from Panzer King's video where he spoke about those 4 Marines in Netherlands. He said these 4 Marines, 2 of them will go to Picardy and 2 of them will go to the Netherlands. So that's kind of, I think he meant to say Belgium, but then later on he railed 3 units to Austria. So he would be already out of movements, because I think it's only a limit of 4 units. So he can't rail 2 to Picardy and 3 to Austria. By the way, the reason he's going to Austria is to take out Switzerland. I can guarantee you that. That's why his tanks are in that position as well. He's going to whack Switzerland as hard as he can and capture it in a single turn. It's also why there's nothing coming in from Bavaria, because they got this fortified line, and that will get him 1 extra buck of income per turn. So that's why he's doing that. Now what else is to report? The Americans, you've already seen on that side. One thing I have to correct on my side for the Americans is that they're supposed to be getting, at the start of their turn, when they're at war with a major power, so last turn, they would get 4 units in the place units box, 4 infantry in the place unit box. So they're going to pop up on board here. So at the start of my American turn, I'm going to just place them there because I forgot. I think that's fair to everybody. I've allowed them to make some corrections on their stuff, and so this is my correction here too. Well, yeah, I think that's fair. It's one of the things that they would get. So I'm going to drop them off here in New York, pick them up with those transports, and drop them off in England. We need to also protect against those Soviet Marines over there. Now that's the issue that we have to concern ourselves with. Those 4 Marines, if you count the 2 in Norway and the 2 in Leningrad, could land anywhere in England that they wish to do so. So we need to spread our forces there, and with the Americans' presence in the British Midlands, it allows us to use some of those British forces to spread them around the rest of the place. Other than that, things are, as usual, on fire and panicking. But it is a lot of fun nonetheless. I'm really enjoying this. I won't get a victory out of it, that's for sure. And so, yeah, let me just pause this thing and we'll quickly talk about victory points. Okay, so this is our victory chart. Now, I've added things, I've changed things. Things are looking good. So ignore the white, I ran out of colored. So here we have all our victory points across the whole board. I'm going to try to keep track of this at the end of every American turn to see how it goes. So this is a correction from my fireside chats. I was completely off. And I also forgot about the capital cities that they get. That's up here. Nationalist China doesn't have any. But yeah, that's the story behind all that. So guess what the victory points are? 17 common turn, 17 Axis, and allies have 7. Quite the disparity of forces. Now, I've talked about this before, but Germany is maxed out. They've got no more they can get, unless they pick up more victory cities. But that's it. Common turn, well, they're almost maxed out. They just need 1. And then they need their tech here. And then they need to hold on to some German currently held territory. So they can go up another 2. The CCP is maxed out, again, unless they hold capital cities. So that's maxed out. Great Britain, of course, has a long ways to go. Italy, well, they're maxed out as well. They don't got anything else to do. Japan's got some wiggle room, specifically this one, if their income is greater than $50. Apart from that, they're maxed out. France, of course, has got space, and KMT has got space. So we're looking at basically everyone's practically maxed out. But the risk is going to be the 2 that the Russians get from here is going to be countered by the 2 from Japan over here. So it'll be a balancing act where they're going to have to stay below, get above 50, and they're going to have to pick up 2 more territories with IPP, some from Germany and some via tech. Apart from that, that's it. So the only way we can hit them as allies is knocking this one down, which could be fairly easy. Take out some Spanish territory here and there, take out their ice-free port and that kind of thing. So we'll be able to take them pretty much right there. Now, that would be this one and a few of these ones here in Norway and that kind of thing. Japan is going to be interesting. So the reason I bring this up about how to knock them down is the only way I can win this game now is to make the game drag out. If they're tied and we're at the end of the game, they are going to be, the game's going to persist turn after turn after turn. And I should also state that these guys hold Paris, and so that means, well, this is just random pins and stuff, but that means that when we start rolling, we actually get a +1 to the die roll. So that means there's a chance that, instead of being 1 out of 12, it's going to be 2 out of 12 chance that the Axis will win, because they hold Paris. Now, if the common turn pick up another territory, if they pick up Calcutta, let's say, then that's, increased chance of +2 on the die rolls for a win to happen. Now, it has no effect on the Axis, I just put it there because in the enemy held territory, but that's a +1 for the die rolls. So we can really see some pretty dramatic movements, and the only way we can win is if we hold on to our victory points and keep them balanced for their victory points, and then at the same time bring them down. Now, that will be a very delicate balance, but we'll be able to do it here and there, specifically if we take out some of their islands here, Pacific Security, at the same time dropping down these ones here, or picking off somewhere here and there targets of opportunity, just to make the game persist longer so we could somehow win the game. Now, you may think I'm all about winning the game, and it's as a mark of respect to my opponents, guys. That's my honest opinion. I'm not all fired up about winning, but I'm fired about doing as good a job as I can to win. As a mark of respect, I'm not going to roll over. I want to just I want them to win with honor, dignity, knowing that I put up the best fight I possibly could to the very last minute. I think that victory is much more sweeter than if I just said, well, lost cause, retreating everything to a safe position, and that's it. That's not my style. I'm going to fight it out to the very last and do my very best to win this game. Now, I probably won't win it, but I'm going to definitely put up a hell of a fight, and that way I'll allow them to actually gain some honor in taking out somebody that was fighting to the bitter end. That's my take, guys. Thank you all for watching, and my British turn will be coming up, well, within a day or two. I've been pretty busy here lately, so talk to y'all later. Cheers.